TV Sunday, the power of truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this exclusive episode of TV Sunday where we will discuss one of the most important and vibrant issues, what happened in Afghanistan. How quickly Taliban succeed in Afghanistan. This is one of most discussed agenda, especially in the United States and the Western world, especially if we talk about NATO. And today I have one of the prominent figure who can tell so much about it. US involved in Afghanistan and what is the outcome and what happened during these 2 decades. Today I'm glad to welcome one of the most dynamic and diverse personalities who spent 34 years serving as the US Army. He's a veteran and moreover spent a lot of time in Iraq as well and retired in 2009. Paul Dietrich. Yes, welcome to the show, Paul. It's a great pleasure welcoming you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us from Staten Island.
You're welcome.
So, can we start our conversation about what are you currently thinking and what's on your mind regarding Afghanistan?
Well, it's an extremely unfortunate situation in my mind, and
Yeah.
it just shows again how poorly we try to do and I do mean try, because that's all we do, nation building. It is not a strength of the United States. It's never been a strength of the United States. In my mind, this is our third failure. We failed in Vietnam. We failed in Iraq and left Iraq and had to go back into Iraq. And now we failed again in Afghanistan.
2 decades, United States and the NATO involved in Afghanistan. If that and President also addressed day before yesterday, saying that we were not there for nation building, we were there for a certain purpose. That is against terrorism. That was the war against terrorism, especially what happened in 9/11 in New York City, and the involvement of Al Qaeda and Taliban. So, if that's not for the nation building, why United States engaged for 2 decades?
All I can say is that the mission, if our mission was strictly anti-terrorism,
Mhm.
then back in 2001, when we went in and we destroyed the terrorists that were there and had won, then we should have left.
Yes.
As soon as we stayed, you basically had a broken system, just like you had in Iraq, just like you had in Vietnam, and you're left to try to put the pieces back together again. And again, I think we do a poor job at doing that. We have a very poor track record. We've not been successful at really doing that in nations that really don't have a strong national identity. Iraq, a lot of the people in Iraq, for example, in my experience, do not feel themselves to be Iraqis. They feel themselves to be Kurds, Shia, or Sunni. And if you don't have that kind of background, there's nothing to build on.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned that this is the third failure of the United States, but again, if we talk regarding the president address, he said that this is not Saigon. Maybe he wanted to defend himself. It's different from the.
It certainly looked like Saigon to me all over again. In fact, it looked worse than Saigon.
Yeah.
It seemed that there were more people. You have an entire group of American citizens that are left in the country that have no way to get out. They have no way to get to Kabul to get to evacuation. That's a terrible situation. These are our own citizens, not counting the other personnel that helped the United States during the 20 years we were there, that are left with no support. I don't understand, in my mind, how the United States expects to build coalitions in the future of other forces when they've just basically abandoned those that are there. I don't understand.
Yeah. And you already spent a lot of time in Iraq, and you mentioned about Vietnam as
Here.
well. How?
Here.
Yes, sir. How you would like to compare this Afghanistan issue with Iraq?
Well, as I saw Iraq, and Iraq is a little different than the other country, and I did not serve in Afghanistan, so I don't have that on the ground feeling. But one of the things I found in Iraq was that you had a group of different peoples, but there were very vast differences in those people than what you would see in a normal society.
Mhm.
One of the very noticeable things that I saw when I was there was that you had older folks around my age, maybe a little older, in their 60s and 70s, and you had very young people. You had nobody in between. And the reason for that was that with Saddam Hussein in place, if you disagreed with him, you died or you left the country. That was your choices. And quite a few of those intermediate people left. And when you don't have those people in the middle, and all you have is the older people and the very young, it's very, very hard to put anything together because you have no base of experience to build from. Most of the older people were getting to the point of retiring. The younger people had no experience, no other than having met with Saddam. So it was a very difficult situation. And then in Iraq, again, we left, and we expected that several years of us being there was going to be enough to carry that nation forward. Obviously, it did not work.
Mhm.
We're back there today.
President said how it falls so quickly. He was also like on the surprising mode regarding the Taliban's victory in the such a short span of time. And if we talk about the Pentagon yesterday, they said Pentagon officials said that it was, they were not informed or they were not aware about it, that they will come so quickly on power. How, what is your comment on it? Because being United States, one of the most smart intelligence force we have in this planet, probably in each and every part of the Afghanistan, they have access. How United States could not imagine this will happen in shortly.
It boggles my mind that you would not think it would collapse that quickly.
Yeah.
The the the, the military, as I understand the mission at the last couple of years, I think since 2014 actually,
Mhm.
the mission has been in Afghanistan to provide intelligence and to provide air support. And both of those are critical in this type of operation, as they were critical in Iraq. Those those type of services
Yeah.
to an army take years and years to generate, and you have to have a lot of depth in them to be correct. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And if those two props are basically pulled from the system, I I don't see a lot of chance of success. So I'm surprised that they couldn't see this coming. To me, it's surprised that they didn't know.
Maybe their intelligence failure. Could we say that?
Well, there's been a lot of intelligence failures over the years. I mean, 9/11 was obviously an intelligence failure in the base case, but the I don't know whether it's a case of they were not told or they chose not to listen. It could be either. But obviously, there's a lot of problems as a result of this.
Were you in favor of withdrawal U.S. Army from the Afghanistan in this situation and in this way of man?
If we were going to, the difficulty is that as a serving officer, you have to obey the commands of the command authority, which is the President of the United States. So you have to obey that command. But to me, there should have been a lot more planning on how we were going to resolve the potential issues of all of these people. And I didn't see any real push to get these people out. You should not
Mhm.
have people falling off the outside of airplanes when they're taking off because they're trying to escape. And the other issue that I see there is that if you're in a big rush to get people out instead of a plan, I mean, realistically, how long ago did we decide we were getting out? Back in this, you know, actually with the last president. Why isn't there a planned process to vet the people that you need to get out and get them on planes and get them out of the country in time?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I don't see it. Now I'm not in the system anymore, so maybe I'm missing this, but it doesn't look to me like it's there.
United States now probably relying on Taliban to rescue our own people from the Afghanistan. So how does
They're
it sound?
relying on the Taliban allowing the people to get to the airport and to get
Yes,
out.
yes. How
That's
does it
it's
sound
oh,
here?
I, that to me is a very risky proposition, and
Yeah.
you'll probably never know how successful it was or not
Mm.
because a lot of people will probably disappear.
Is this like an immature decision of the United States coming out from Afghanistan in this way? They were not totally prepared, or they had not a good plan. Can we say that?
It if there's a plan, it was not apparent to me, and I think it should have been. We should have been seeing flights of people getting out of the country before, and
Right.
now all of a sudden it's a mad rush. One of my other concerns is that now you have a group of people coming out of the country. Who's vetting those people? How do we know that those people are truly deserving of being brought out of the country? How do we know that they worked for the United States and that they are not terrorists? I don't know how we can vet all of those people under an emergency situation like this. So that's all I see.
Yes. Well, what did you think seeing the people like rushing in the international airport, the crossing the security, the huge mobs were in the international airport, Kabul.
It looked tremendously out of control, and it certainly didn't look like a controlled situation in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, we all know what airports look like. That certainly didn't look like there was any security checks or anything.
Yes, yes. That we saw the photograph that which was viral and all the social media and the media internet industry as well, where 640 people were in a U.S. Air Force plane. Oh my God.
Yes, as I said, they attached themselves to the outside of the plane.
Yeah.
Amazing. Also, you saw scenes of helicopters flying out of the U.S. Embassy exactly as you did in Vietnam. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the exact scene in my mind repeated again. Yeah. Very, very sad.
Would you mind to give some glimpses of comparison with the Vietnam and the Taliban? I mean, Afghanistan here. Is
Again,
that
I don't know that we should have ever been in Vietnam either. As I said, I think the best policy in Afghanistan may have been to destroy the terrorists and then just leave. Uh, there would be a big hue and cry about the humanitarian, but you have that same exact hue and cry now. You again have a humanitarian crisis. Maybe it's even worse. So to me, I see a very strong parallel between the two. And again, I saw almost the same exact thing when we just pulled up stakes and left in Iraq, and then had to go back to fight the terrorists there. So
yes? Well, one thing
at
that
this point, maybe the best mission would have been to continue with the minor support that we were giving in Intel and Air Force.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a cost, and yes, we're putting people at risk. But when I put on the uniform, I knew I was putting myself at risk. So I don't know. That's kind of what I signed on for.
Well, one thing this is very surprising to know for each and everybody in the world that were there 200 almost 200,000 armies or security forces of Afghanistan government, and why the president himself left the country despite fighting with the Taliban. This is instant question to all of the people living around the world, not only in the United States or Europe or Afghanistan even. What do you say about it?
I believe that they left because they felt that they were thrown out by themselves. Basically, they were left to stand on their own 2 feet, and they couldn't do it. They, I think the same thing goes for the president. And I've heard all of the rumors that he took money with him, and I don't know whether that's true or not. But to be in the position of having been a government force in that country is probably a death sentence at the
Yeah.
moment. Probably. I don't know that. Maybe the Taliban have a change of heart. I doubt that, but maybe.
Mhm.
Maybe they're not going to invite the terrorists back in. Maybe. I don't know that. But all of these things are very concerning. But
Yeah.
again, the other concern is, what has this done to the image of the United States
Mhm.
when you pull out like this and you have this type of public disaster? Basically,
Yeah.
it's going to be extremely difficult going forward to do any of these, or try to do any of these type of things in the future.
Yes, but what do you think that the key reasons of quick success of Taliban in Afghanistan? What do you think? Like it's almost 10 days or 2 weeks they came into power. Oh my God. How it happened? What is your analysis regarding it?
I think just from the persons who were in the Afghanistani military feeling that they were left and that there was no reason for them to fight, because they just they were more worried about their own security.
Mhm.
That's how I see it. They wanted. They're probably some of the folks trying to get onto those aircraft to get out of the country because they're afraid. And my experience with the terrorists has been they not only kill you, but they kill your family. That
Yes.
was my experience with the terrorists in Iraq. And people tend to react to that. And I think that's what you're seeing. The reaction is, okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
let's get out of Dodge.
Despite fighting, they were afraid and they wanted to save themselves,
I
not the country, and they were even not thinking about their responsibility while they are there with the uniform.
well, again, I go back to, was Afghanistan really a country?
Mm.
Or was it a group of tribes where your first allegiance is to your tribe? And saw that in Iraq also. It's a very, very difficult situation. They don't have that feeling of country. And again, even if they did, it's a very scary thing when your family is threatened.
Today morning, from United Arab Emirates, Ashraf Ghani addressed to media, and most importantly, he said one line that he was not interested to exile, but there was so much circumstances, and he was compelled to go out. Do you think there is any background story of his abandonment? Do you think that can we guess there was something inside the story?
When the Russians left Afghanistan, the person that they had in the government was tortured and killed,
Yeah.
as was his family. So I'm sure that that was going through the person's mind.
How do you see the picture of Afghanistan? I mean, future of Afghanistan now.
I'm extremely concerned that it will again become a haven for terrorists, and that again we will have terrorists coming out from there to strike at the Western world. I can see that restarting. I hope at least this time we're not stupid enough to go back on the ground in there. Maybe if we have to use air support or something like that, but I can't see us going back there. I just can't.
Well, one thing that United States entered to the Afghanistan in 2001 with the sole purpose of fighting against the terrorism, and if we talk regarding Al Qaeda, that Al Qaeda and his leader Osama bin Laden was finished in 2011, and after that also it's almost a decade United States engaged in Afghanistan. Do you think that the past one decade was almost in vain, or what can we say?
It's a very, very difficult situation. No matter which way you go, you're going to lose. It's when do you want to lose? I think. I really think maybe at this point, the only two options you had were to continue to provide air and intel, let them do their own fighting, but it was basically a stalemate. So stalemates are very difficult to overcome, especially in such a remote place in the world.
Yes. What should be the U.S. role in the future for Afghanistan?
I can't even envision one unless the terrorists come back. I just don't see us. Again, I say we do nation building very poorly.
Do you think that the United States is responsible for such a quick success of Taliban?
I think that we basically pulled the props out from underneath the Afghanistani army. I would just hope that we don't do exactly the same thing in Iraq and end up back with another country in exactly the same situation. I can understand us not fighting for them, doing the actual on the ground fighting,
Yes.
but I do think we have to provide the props to keep them working as their own military.
Well, eventually, I would like to ask you that after investing more than 2 trillion US dollar and costing the life of more almost 2,500 personnel, our great heroes, what did we achieve from Afghanistan mission?
We lost. We lost.
Would you mind to outline the losses? What were those?
We lost money. We lost personnel. We lost prestige. We lost position in the world. All of those items we lost, and I don't know. To me, it seems like a waste.
Would you like to say anything that how can we cover these laws in future, or what would be the experience and lesson that we learn from there?
First off, in my mind, we have to have if we're going to employ the military, you need to give the military a strictly military mission. In my mind, the mission that the military did very well in Afghanistan was destruction of the terrorists. We destroyed them. As soon as we start to get into any other type of mission, like let's make this a democratic country, let's make sure that they have voting rights for everybody, I think we're going down a shaky path that is unlike. First off, those are not the skill sets of the military.
Yes.
So we're asking the military to do something outside of its skill set.
If there is the military mission, we are success. But if we involve in the social, economic, or political agenda, we are failure. Right? Can we say that?
If there's a strictly military mission, we have a good chance of success.
Yes.
Nothing is ever sure once you start shooting.
Yes.
But the other missions, the try to rebuild a society, I don't think that we have a very much of a chance. I just don't see it happening.
Yes. Yes.
At least not in anywhere near the terms that Americans think in, which happens to be short term. In the rest of the world's thinking, 20 years is a very short period of time. When you're thinking of rebuilding societies, usually it takes centuries.
Centuries, of course.
Especially think of what I've described in Iraq. How long does it take for those younger people to gain enough experience,
Right.
from middle and then senior man? You're probably talking on the order of a century. And without those type of personnel there, it's very difficult to move a society forward.
What is your final message to the people who are still evacuating in Afghanistan.
My God, I hope you make it. That's all I can tell you, because I don't think that we have supported you well enough in any manner, shape, or form.
Thank you so much for joining us, Paul. Thank you very much for your time and opinion.
You're welcome.
TV Sunday. The power of truth.